There had been some questions regarding the CSET paper solution, so we have come up with a clarification class as well as a errata class. Now here we have the 7 questions that we would be discussing. The first question is, n is a prime number and n leaves a remainder of 1 when divided by 4. So in the last class we picked up the numbers as 13 and 17. Both are correct because you would have 12 plus 1 and 16 plus 1 as the right option. But it says that n is a unique number. That means n is only one number and cannot be two number. And therefore, first of all, we said that S1 is required because n is prime, and then we need to understand that it leaves a remainder of 1 while divided by 4. So we got through these two numbers that are there, which are between 10 and 20. Now, since n is only unique number, S also would be incorrect. So both S and S1 and S2 together are not sufficient to answer this question. So again I repeat, it is only one unique number that is asked, and therefore there was a error that was there, so just rectified it. Again we are I'm repeating, we are trying to find two of the numbers that are there, and since there are two numbers, n is a unique natural, that makes this S2 incorrect. So both of those are not sufficient to find out the answer. The next question is, here there were questions from the students saying that only S1 itself is sufficient to answer. Now only S1 itself is not sufficient to answer. It's simply saying what are the two numbers. It's not asking what are the two prime numbers. Now when I say only two numbers that I have to find out, I can say 21 into 1 would also give me 21, but their sum won't be 10. So this alone is not sufficient to find out, and therefore 3 and 7 would be the right option. And for proving 3 and 7, I need to have both the statements that are there. So again a clarification, there was a doubt raised by few of the students, so clarification here. Okay, so I repeat again, both the statements together are sufficient to answer this question. Simply we cannot say 7 into 3 gives me 21 and that is sufficient, because there could be another number which could be 21 into 1 if I am not considering the second case. So I need to understand the second case as well, that the sum should be 10. The next question is, here what we did yesterday, we considered a 3-generation family, but the question says it's 2 generations, so we missed the 2 generation. If 3 generation is there, what we have calculated would be the way. Now when it is 2 generation, let's do it again. So you have P, Q, R, S, T and U. We know T and S are male, U is a female, Q is a female. Q is the mother-in-law of R. So mother-in-law of R, and U is the daughter of who? U is the daughter of P. So P is the parent. It could be mother or father, we do not know, of U. And there are only 2 unmarried siblings. Now 2 unmarried siblings, one of the sibling is unmarried, and that is T, that we know. Now S cannot be, because 2 unmarried siblings and there are 3 males and 3 females and 2 married couples. Now 2 married couples makes 2 males and 2 females as a married couple, so you would have 1 female and 1 male left. Now 1 unmarried male is already there, so there would be 1 unmarried female that would be there. So S by no chance would be unmarried, S would be married, R is already married, that we know. Q is married because Q is the mother-in-law, and P is the parent, so P is also married. Now since this is a 2-generation question, you would have the parent generation as PQ and the children generation as RSTU, but there are only 2 unmarried siblings. So unmarried siblings would be T and U, and R and S would be the married couple. So P and Q would be the married couple and R and S would be the married couple. So you would have 2 as the right option here. The next question, there was a doubt raised where one of the students has brought up an example of xyz is equal to 235, saying that 235 is a digit which is not divisible by 3, that is correct. Then there was a confusion where he said 235, if I am trying to write here, it is not divisible by. So what the student is trying to do is, for xyz you are trying to do 2 into 3 into 5 plus 3 into 2 into 5 and so on, and saying that this makes it 90, and then you are trying to explain that this cannot be solved, but this in itself is incorrect. Okay, because you cannot take the multiplication, these are digits, so it's the ones place, tens place and hundreds place. So it would be 100x 10y and z, 100y 10x and z, 10z and x, and then it would be 100z 10x and y. So you would have 111x plus y plus z. Okay, so even if you take this as an example, you interchange the digits, you would have 235 plus you would write it as 352 plus 523, which would give you 110. So the same example that you have taken, I have calculated from this. Now this is divisible by 111 that we have calculated, and therefore this is the example that you have taken can perfectly go. But again, it won't be divisible by, it would be divisible by 3, it would be divisible by 37, because 111 is divisible by 3, 111 is divisible by 37, and definitely you have x plus y plus z, so it would be divisible by x plus y plus z. The only value it cannot be divisible would be 9. So make very sure that in this question you cannot take 3 numbers as you took 2, 3 and 5 and simply multiply those numbers in order to get these digits. These digits are through the ones, tens and hundreds arrangement. It's clearly written, it's a 3-digit number. Clear? The next question, which of the following there is a minimum change in the value if 2 is added to both numerator and denominator? Now minimum change, how do we calculate? I'll just add, 5 is added, so I'll add 2 plus 5 divided by 3 plus 5, that makes it 7 by 8. 7 by 8 minus 2 by 3 gives you value somewhere around 0.2. Okay, then you would have the last value, the middle values you need not to do because those are the extreme values. Now here the last value is 5 plus 5 by 6 plus 5, which is 10 by 11 minus 5 by 6, and this gives you somewhere around 0.07. So this would be the minimum change value that would be seen. So D would be the answer here. The next clarification question. Now this question we have to understand. There was a clarification which said that 28 into 12 would give us 420. Now let's understand this. A frog jumps 30 and slips down 15. So with every slips down 15, so with every segment he is having a gain of 15. Now if we simply do 450 divided by 15, we would have 30 as the answer, as we explained yesterday. But there was a clarification asking about when we do 28 into 12, it is 420. Now when it is 420, he would take another 30 and he would reach the brim. Now understand, to get the frog out of the well, he would have to have his last leg that should be out. When we are talking about this, it's the eye point that the frog is reaching at 450. Now when the frog is reaching at an eye point of 450, we cannot consider that at this point it would be out. So however, this question remains ambiguous here because there is a little height for the frog itself. Reaching the exact point won't make the frog out. So if it is the exact height, then it would slip again 15 points down. So at 29, at 29, it would move at 450, okay, but it would slip again 15, that would make 435, and then again at the next jump, that is the 30th jump, it would be adding up 30, which gives you 465, and that is a final point where he would be finally out of the well. So make sure what we are trying to understand here. However, there could be another way of understanding this question, but to my ideas, this should be the way under which we should follow it, because there should be certain height of the frog also that should be taken into consideration, and the last leg of the frog should be out in order for the frog to get out. So those were some of the clarifications from the questions that we had discussed yesterday. Wishing you a very good luck for your preparation, and if you have any further doubts, feel free to contact us back and we'll be more than happy to bring all the resolutions back to you.